Is this the heat wave that finally changes French minds about air conditioning? Well, definitely not for the country's Environment Minister. Take a listen.
Je suis horrifiée par les gens qui me disent « Ah, mais il n'y a qu'à mettre la clim partout. » Très bien, on va mettre la clim partout. Vous croyez que ça va éviter un feu de forêt? Vous croyez que ça va éviter la mort des animaux que nous voyons? Vous croyez que ça va éviter quoi? Rien.
And experts on France 24's debate as well were sceptical at best.
What we need is not an AC. What we need is comfortable places. It's like if you have skin cancer and the doctor will give you cream. What will happen to you? You will die.
It's time to question the fact that we use always more technology to solve problems that technology itself has created.
Well, despite those voices there is no denying this has been a particularly brutal week, not least for schools, hospitals and care homes. And the world is looking on shocked by the lack of what is seen elsewhere as basic technology. Here then to pour cold water on the topic of on this topic is our technology editor, Peter O'Brien. Peter, first of all, you've got a few myths to bust, haven't you?
Yeah, hi Nadia. I think it's a shame that AC is so politicised and arguably increasingly so with some of the politician statements we've seen in the last week here in France. But it is becoming more popular. Now about a quarter of French homes have AC, and for good reason. It's a very efficient way to transfer heat. It simply compresses a coolant and carries heat outside of the building and deposits it outside. This is actually 3 or 4 times more efficient in terms of transfer of electrical energy to heat energy compared to something like an electric heater that we use in winter. So, the physics itself is undeniably efficient and effective.
Doesn't it, though, depend on the type of AC you've got?
Yeah, of course. So the kind that many French people are flocking to go and buy, and that I myself have actually bought this week, are these portable air conditioners with the tube that sticks outside, not the kind which is split between outside and inside units. And of course, these are much less efficient. The heating part is actually inside the room as well, which you don't want. It also sucks in air that's just been cooled in the room to expel this hot air outside. So obviously it's less efficient, but that doesn't mean it doesn't work. It does work, and I can understand why people are going and getting them, because in France it's really difficult, especially in these historic cities, beautiful cities we have, to get something installed on the exterior of a flat.
Right, and so the main argument then here in France is that actually we should be thinking about trying to upgrade these beautiful historic buildings themselves.
I mean, look, this is easier said than done, right? If you've got, I'm not saying that insulation isn't effective, it really is. And if you've got the money, if you've got the space to insulate the inside of your flat, by all means, go ahead. But in terms of the most effective part of insulation, which is insulating the outside of building, you can forget about it when it comes to these historic buildings. It's just fanciful. In Paris, in terms of if we want to put something on a building, like an AC unit, you can't put it on the front, it's protected. And you can't put it on the courtyard either, because, the co-ownership will say it's too noisy. They won't let you. Now, Paris does have an amazing underground cooling system that's linked to the Seine River that cools parts of museums and shopping centres. But, we're decades away from this being available to all the hospitals and care homes here. And actually, it's not going to be available for average people anytime now. So to be honest, maybe the noisy solution is the right one in this instance.
But what about the claim, Peter, that we've heard a lot in the past couple of days, that these AC units are pumping heat back out into the city, and therefore really they're just making the problem worse?
Well, it depends what problem. And I think people conflate things here. Yes, they do make cities maybe 1 or 2 degrees more warmer during a heat wave if they're being used a lot by everyone. That's going to make people less comfortable, and but it will prevent these preventable deaths. But that's very different to climate change. That's not the same thing as global warming, as greenhouse gases. The air being pumped out of these things is not contributing to global warming per se. It's contributing to slightly warmer cities. So it's illogical to suggest that otherwise. And the other claim that we've had in the past is about the refrigerant inside. If these leak, could they be really, really bad for climate change? In the past, yes. These systems have been upgraded. They don't have the refrigerant that they used to have. My unit that I bought has a global warming potential of 3. These systems used to run to hundreds or thousands of that same measure. That means that even if all of the coolant inside were to leak out into the atmosphere, it would be the equivalent to eating like one beef burger. So maybe French people should just eat less meat. I don't know.
Well, that's a whole other debate we're getting into then, Peter. Before you go, though, you've provided some important clarification there, but isn't generally, though, there just a concern that more electricity is being used? And clearly, when we're talking about climate change, that's a problem as well.
Well, I'd argue that France is well positioned for this. It's got a highly decarbonised grid, and it's an energy exporter. So yes, this week the heat did mean that a couple of nuclear reactors had to slow down so as to avoid heating up the rivers that they rely on too much. But to be honest, it was barely a blip on the grid. Remember that it's winter, and it's heating in winter that actually that's actually the most strain on the grids. And I find the whole debate around AC quite funny in a way, because it's similar to the one around heat pumps. And they're the same technology. They're the same thing, but reversible. Air-to-air heat pumps can cool your house in summer as well. And what's the French government doing? Subsidising the kind of heat pump that cannot be an AC, air-to-water heat pumps. So they could be looking at this and killing two birds with one stone, weaning us off gas, weaning us off inefficient electric heaters in winter, while also providing necessary cooling in summer. But that's not being done, and it's silly policy. It's these old untouchable buildings, of course, but it's also frankly public opinion and politicians who are playing games with people's lives.